Hey, 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 Saturday night in Austin, Texas, hummed with the energy of a country rock tune. Electric guitars echoed from the South by Southwest Live Music Bar, where Monica, Sara Rivera's best friend, was celebrating her wedding. Sara stood quietly in a corner, dressed in a faded yellow bridesmaid gown with frayed edges, her scuffed white sneakers standing out amid the crowd of high heels and tailored suits. She nudged her round glasses up her nose, muttering, "I look like an abstract painting dumped in a high-end gallery." As a public school art teacher, Sara never felt at ease in flashy events like this. A poor girl wore a yellow dress at her friend's wedding. Millionaire danced with her and fell madly in love. Before we start the story, leave a comment below telling us which city you're watching from. Subscribe our channel and enjoy the story. Steve Blake, CEO of Blake Music Tech, sat at a VIP table near the stage, gripping a Lone Star beer, his face scrunched in a frown. He hated parties, and the reason his mom, Linda Blake, had forced him here. "You need to mingle, don't embarrass me." When the band shifted to a slow dance, Linda pointed at Sara. "Dance with that bridesmaid. She looks lonely." Steve glanced over, catching Sara awkwardly dodging a drunk guy's dance invite inside. "Whatever mom wants, I guess." He strode over, towering in a perfectly cut black suit, hair slicked back like a rock star. "Want to dance?" he asked, his tone as dry as if he were offering a business deal. Sara looked up, startled. "Me? You sure you've got the right person?" Steve shrugged. "My mom picked you, not me." Sara smirked, standing. "Fine, but heads up, I dance like my feet are tied to a chair." The dance kicked off, and just as she'd warned, Sara was a disaster. She stomped on Steve's foot on the first beat, making him wince, but she shrugged it off. "Sorry, sneakers don't jive with slow songs. Go back to your beer, I'll manage." Steve let out a sudden laugh, a sound he couldn't recall making at parties like this. "You're weird," he said, still holding her hand, guiding her through another clumsy spin. Sara shrugged. "Weird's better than dull, right?" The crowd started to notice, not because they danced well, but for the funny mismatch. Sara with her round glasses and sneakers, Steve with his cool exterior and eyes slowly lighting up. As the song ended, Sara let go, giving a playful bow. "Thanks for not suing me over your foot, Mr. CEO." Steve smirked. "Thanks for not boring me to death out there." He wanted to say more, but Sara slipped back to her corner, leaving him standing, his hands still warm from their brief hold. Outside, Austin's neon lights blinked along 6th Street, blending with bar guitars. Steve returned to his table, but his eyes kept drifting to Sara, laughing with Monica, oblivious to his gazondas. He muttered, "This girl, she's really something else." That night, for the first time in years, Steve didn't want to bolt from the party early. A few days after the wedding, Steve Blake sat in his penthouse office at Blake Music Tech in downtown Austin, staring out at the traffic on Congress Avenue. He couldn't focus on the revenue reports. All he could think about was the bespectacled bridesmaid who'd stomped on his foot without mercy. Finally, he grabbed his phone and sent an awkward text. "Hey, Sara, I owe you a dance without the foot damage." "Coffee?" After hitting send, he muttered, "I'm nuts. Sounds like I'm scheduling a meeting." Sara was in her tiny apartment, hands smeared with paint from a canvas for her class, when her phone pinged. She read the message, pushed her glasses onto her forehead and smirked. "This CEO's got too much time on his hands." She texted back, "Coffee's fine, but don't expect the bridesmaid dress again." They agreed to meet at Joe's Coffee on South Congress, a little spot with red brick walls and the rich aroma of roasted beans, pure Austin vibes. When Sara arrived, still in sneakers and a paint-splattered tee, Steve was already there, suit jacket off, sipping black coffee. "You look like a paint bomb went off," he said, a half-smile tugging at his lips. Sara plopped down, ordering a latte. "And you look ready to sign $1 million deal. Relax, I won't mess up the table." They laughed, and for once, Steve felt at ease. No need to wear his icy CEO mask. The conversation started clunky, but Sara didn't hold back. "I don't trust rich guys who mean business," she said, stirring her latte. "They usually go for shiny things, not people like me." Steve raised an eyebrow. "You think I'm into you because you're shiny? I hate parties, hated that wedding, until you crushed my foot." Sara burst out laughing. So I woke you up? That's a badge of honor. The next day, Sara brought Steve to her art class at a rundown public school in East Austin. The room was cramped, walls peeling, desks wobbly, and the crayon box down to a few broken stubs. Kids swarmed her, shouting, "Miss Sara, draw us a fox!" She knelt, sketching a fox on the chalkboard with colored chalk, her voice soft. "Today the fox has a new friend. Who wants to draw with me?" Steve lingered by the door, hands in pockets, watching her work. A boy tugged his sleeve. "You draw, mister? Miss Sara says everyone can." Steve hesitated, grabbed a red crayon, and scribbled a wobbly line, smudging his white shirt. The kids roared with laughter as Sara rushed over. "Geez, a CEO this clumsy? Who'd hire you?" Steve blushed but didn't mind. He wiped his hands, thus scanning the room. Kids' drawings plastered the walls, bursting with color despite the scarcity. "You do this every day?" he asked, voice low. Sara nodded. "Yeah, these kids need someone to believe they can make something beautiful, even if no one else cares." Steve went quiet, struck by someone living for neither money nor fame, a world he'd never known. As they left, Austin's sunset painted the streets gold, a distant guitar strumming. Steve blurted, "You're like no one I've met." "I haven't stopped thinking about you since that dance floor." Sara turned, adjusting her glasses, grinning. "Careful, think too much, and I'll start charging you." But her eyes sparkled, and Steve knew. He was falling into a tune he couldn't stop. One midweek evening, Austin glowed with the lights of live music bars along Rainey Street. But Sara and Steve opted for a quieter spot, a little diner with exposed brick walls and string lights dangling overhead. They sat across from each other, Sara in her white sneakers, fidgeting with a Lone Star beer, while Steve ditched his suit jacket, sleeves rolled up, looking less like a CEO than usual. The vibe was easy, but both felt something deeper brewing, waiting to spill out. Sara broke the silence first, as always. "Bet you grew up in a mansion with maids brewing your coffee every morning, huh?" she teased, winking. Steve smirked. "Close. No maids. Just my dad, who thought money could buy everything, even my affection." He paused, gazing out the window where lights reflected off the wet street. "He built Blake Music Tech from scratch, then dumped it on me when he died. I didn't choose it. I got stuck with it." Sara nudged her glasses up, tilting her head. "Sounds like you hate it. Why not quit?" Steve met her eyes, his gaze darkening. "Because I want to prove I'm not the failure he thought I was. But sometimes I wonder if I'm even living my own life." His voice rasped, and for the first time, Sara saw past the cool CEO she'd met at the wedding. She took a sip of beer, then said out of the blue, "I'm the opposite. My dad lost everything to a big music company, a fake deal that bankrupted us. He died in a crummy rented apartment, and I grew up with Mom in a caravan." She gave a sad smile. "I don't trust rich folks to have hearts, Steve. They take it all and leave people like me picking up the pieces." Steve froze, his hand tightening around his beer. He wanted to argue but stayed quiet, letting her go on. "Teaching kids to paint makes it easier, though," Sara said, her eyes lighting up. "Even with nothing, I want them to believe they're worth something. Something I didn't have growing up." Steve stared at her, long and steady, like he was searching for something in her gaze. "You're weird, Sara," he finally said. "I live in a world full of fakes. People smile at me for money or power. But you don't care about that. You make me want to believe in something again." Sara shrugged, keeping her playful edge. "Don't believe in me too much. I can still stomp your foot." But her smile couldn't hide the softness in her eyes. Steve leaned across the table, voice low. "I didn't think rich folks had hearts either, until I danced with you at that wedding." The space between them shrank, the guitar from a nearby bar humming along with their quickening heartbeats. Outside, Austin's stage lights flickered, as if bearing witness to two old wounds finding each other, not to erase but to heal together. After their heart-to-heart at the diner, Steve decided to do something he'd never done with anyone: ask Sara on a getaway. "There's a music and arts festival outside Austin this weekend," he texted, trying to sound casual. "You like art, I like music. Want to go?" Sara read it in her classroom, paint on her hands, muttering, "What's this CEO up to?" Trying to trick me into dancing again? She replied, sure, but I'm bringing sneakers. No fancy rooms or expectations, got it? Steve grinned at her response, texting back, no suit here either, don't worry. They met Friday afternoon at the Spot, a sprawling field 30 miles from Austin, home to the Hill Country Arts and Beats Festival. Electric guitars mixed with the smoky scent of food trucks, tents dotted the landscape, and string lights twinkled under a starry Texas sky. Sara showed up in a tee, jeans, and her trusty white sneakers, adjusting her glasses when she saw Steve. Flannel shirt, ripped jeans, more rock musician than CEO. You auditioning for a band? She teased. Steve shrugged. And you look like you just ditched class. Come on, I've got something to show you. They wandered through art stalls. Sara paused at an abstract painting, eyes lighting up. Look at this. The colors tell a story better than words. Steve stood beside her, pretending to analyze. Yeah, I see. A pile of drunk red paint. Sara laughed, playfully punching his shoulder. You're hopeless at art. But as she laughed, Steve watched her, thinking, she's prettier than anything here. Night fell, and they caught an indie band on the main stage. Drums pounded, lights flashed, and the crowd started swaying. Steve tugged Sara in. Dance with me. I'll lead this time. Sara winced. What if I stomp your foot again? Steve laughed. I can take it. Just don't run off. They twirled, less awkward than at the wedding. Sara let him guide her, his hand resting lightly on her waist, and for once, she didn't adjust her glasses to hide her blush. The crowd faded away, leaving just the music and their locked gazes. After the show, they sat by a campfire in the camping area, the Texas night sky blazing with stars. Steve borrowed a guitar from a nearby camper, strumming a few clumsy notes. I played in college, he said, smiling sheepishly. Sara tilted her head. Let me guess. Your dad said, be a CEO instead? Steve nodded, then looked at her. You know, Sara, you make me want to pick it up again. You make me want to be a better guy, not just the rich jerk you thought I was. Sara went quiet. No witty comeback this time. The firelight danced on her face, highlighting her eyes behind those glasses. He set the guitar down, leaning closer. I've never met anyone like you, honest, tough, and beautiful in a way I can't explain. Sara smiled softly. You say that without fearing a foot stomp? Steve chuckled, then gently pulled her in. They kissed, soft, sweet, like a perfect melody amid the crackling fire and stars. When they parted, Sara adjusted her glasses, teasing, I still don't trust rich folks with hearts, but you might have one. Steve hugged her closer. That's enough for me. Under the Texas stars, they sat there. No more words needed, just distant music and their hearts beating in sync. After that starry Texas weekend, Sara and Steve settled into a cozy rhythm. He'd swing by her classroom with coffee, she'd drop by his office with homemade tacos, and they'd often cap the day with a beer at their favorite live music bar. But that warmth shattered one rainy Tuesday afternoon, a rare downpour cloaking Austin in shimmering neon lights. Sara was at home, digging through her dad's old keepsake box for class inspiration, when she found a crumpled letter. It was from Blake Music Tech, signed by Arthur Blake, Steve's father, 15 years ago, terminating her dad, Manuel Rivera's contract for financial reasons. She remembered her dad, an indie musician, had signed with Blake to release an album, but they pulled funding mid-project, leaving him with nothing. Her hands shook, clutching the paper, as she whispered, No way! Steve knew and hid it? She drove through the rain to Steve's downtown Austin office, sneakers soaked as she stormed in. Steve was in a meeting, but stepped out when he saw her through the glass. What are you doing here? You look like you ran a marathon in this mess, he said, forcing a smile. Sara didn't return it. She thrust the letter at him, voice breaking. What's this, Steve? Your dad ruined mine, and you knew, didn't you? Steve paled, staring at the letter like it was a live grenade. Sara, listen, he started, but she cut him off. Since when? He sighed, head dropping. I found out after the festival, checking my dad's old files. I meant to tell you, but I didn't know how. Sara let out a bitter laugh, tears streaking down. How? You let me fall for you, let me trust you, While you're the son of the guy who drove my family to ruin. Steve stepped forward, reaching for her hand. I'm not my dad, Sara. I want to fix it. She yanked away. Fix it? You think I need your pity? She turned, storming out, rain fogging her glasses. Steve called after her. Sara, don't go! But she didn't stop. Back home, she tore apart the painting they'd made together in class, a fox under stars, scattering the pieces on the floor, muttering, I'm such a fool, believing a rich guy had a heart. That night, she sat in her small apartment, Austin's rain echoing her shattered spirit. Steve stood outside his office in the downpour, soaked, staring where she'd gone. He wanted to chase her but felt rooted to the spot. He punched the wall, cursing himself. I swore I wouldn't hurt her, and yet. His phone lit up with a text from his mom. You okay? He didn't reply, just thought, she needs time. But what if she doesn't come back? In his chest, Sara's melody, bold, real, now sounded like broken notes. Austin's rain fell harder, as if trying to wash it all away, but it couldn't erase the pain that had just erupted between them. After Sara stormed out in the rain, Steve couldn't sit still in his fancy Austin office anymore. He stared at the smudge painting he'd made in her classroom, now hanging on his wall like a nagging reminder, and decided to act. Words won't cut it, he muttered. I've got to do something real. He set out to fix the past quietly, not to buy Sara back, but to prove he wasn't his father. Steve tracked down Sara's mom, Sara Rivera, in a modest East Austin neighborhood. She opened the door, eyeing him warily. What do you want? Money to make me forgive you? Steve shook his head, holding a stack of papers. No, I'm here to apologize. My dad was wrong to kill Manuel's contract. I can't undo the past, but I want to make it right. He handed her a plan to fund a community arts center named after Manuel Rivera. No company logo, no mention of him, just a space for kids to paint and play music. Elena stayed silent, then nodded. You didn't have to do this for Sara, but I see you mean it. Over 2 weeks, Steve worked under the radar. He hired folks to fix up an old warehouse into the center, bought desks, paints, and guitars for the kids. He even painted something himself, as clumsy as that day in Sara's class. A fox under stage lights with a note. I can't erase the past, but I want to paint a future with you. He mailed it to Sara anonymously, hoping she'd get it. Sara, holed up in her small apartment, couldn't shake the hurt. She avoided their music bar, even her classroom, afraid of Steve's memory. But one day a package arrived. She opened it, saw his painting, and smirked. Looks like a fox drunk on beer. Then she read the note and her eyes welled up. She drove to the new arts center her mom had mentioned, walked in and froze. Walls covered in kids' art, guitars in the corner, a small sign reading Manuel Rivera Center. No trace of Steve. He'd left no personal mark. She stood there, hands trembling, realizing he wasn't trying to buy forgiveness, but to do right. That night she texted him, meet me at the old bar, South by Southwest, 8 p.m. No suit. Steve read it, heart pounding, threw on flannel and jeans, and bolted out like he was dodging a work deadline. When he got there, Sara stood in the corner, still in sneakers and glasses, holding a beer. Steve approached, hesitant. You here to stomp my foot again? Sara gave a small smile, her first since the rain. Not yet, but I might if you're not honest. She looked at him, voice low. I saw the center. You didn't have to, but you did. I'm not fully over it, but I want to try again. Steve took her hand, gentle. I'll paint 1,000 lousy foxes if you give me a shot. Sara winked. Better stock up on paint, 'cause I'm not easy. Outside, Austin's lights flickered, cheering on a fresh start. A month after their South by Southwest reunion, Austin still pulsed with live music and neon lights. Sara and Steve were no longer the awkward strangers fumbling on a dance floor. They'd found their own rhythm. That night, Steve invited Sara back to the bar where it all began, saying, I owe you a proper dance. Sara texted back, no suit, and don't expect mercy if you step on my toes. When Sara walked in, she wore her usual tee, jeans, and scuffed white sneakers, her round glasses slightly askew from rushing. Steve waited on the dance floor, flannel sleeves rolled up, hair tousled, holding two Lone Star beers. The band strummed a gentle slow rock tune, golden lights bathing them. "Ready, Teach?" Steve asked, winking. Sara grinned. "Ready, but if you stink at this, I'm going back to drawing foxes with the kids. Better than you." They hit the floor, and this time, no clumsiness. Steve spun her smoothly, hand light on her waist, and Sara followed, laughing as he threw in a mock rock star pose. The crowd clapped, a few shouting, "Best couple of the night." As the song slowed, Steve pulled her closer, whispering, "You're the melody I never want to end." Sara adjusted her glasses, teasing, "That's cheesy, but I'll give you points for not crushing my feet." Then he paused, pulling a small box from his pocket. Sara frowned. "What's that?" "Don't tell me it's a ring. I'm not ready." Steve laughed, opening it. Inside were new white sneakers, etched with Sara and Steve on the soles. "No ring," he said, "but these, to keep you walking with me, rain or festival." Sara burst out laughing, throwing her arms around him. "You're still a goof, but I love it." They kissed right there on the dance floor, under the lights and roaring applause. Outside, Austin glowed, guitars echoing down the street. Sara whispered, "Our first dance was a mess, but this feels like fate." Steve held her tighter. "And I'll dance with you forever."